And welcome to our lab salon, and welcome Jane Brucker, please come on up. We're so excited, for those of you who weren't at the talk this afternoon, we can store for you. Jane is a professor of art at Loyola Marymount University in Los Angeles, and makes work that includes all the materials there are in the world, whatever is needed. So assemblage, drawing, painting, sculpture, performance, poetry, and other things that I don't know about. So please welcome Jane Brucker. That not only does Jane have a graduate degree in drawing and painting from the Claremont Graduate School, but also a degree in theology and spiritual studies from Claremont School of Theology, and is a certified Alexander Technique practitioner. So we'll find out a little bit about what that's about and what that means for us as visual artists. So now Jane, now we okay.
Well, thanks, Karen.
Thank you for coming to
I'm
us.
really not sure what Art Lab is.
Neither are we.
Not sure what this part of the week is like. Okay.
This is more of a conversation.
Oh, it is.
So our lab is we just invite speakers. We invite whoever we want to come and join us in a conversation about your own research, the things that you most care about. So we've had, for instance, Francis Whitehead came to us and talked about the phenologic garden and work that leaves the studio and goes out into the world, work with plants and reconstituting the physical nature of the world. And then we've talked with Melissa Lanchesky from our school, who talked to us about water, where it comes from, where it goes, and what it does in between. And we've heard from the artist Michael Genovese, who did a public scribing project where we put up big plates and we wrote on them, and he then took them back to the studios, transcribed the graffiti, and made more complete images of the sort of gathered information. We've had a presentation by Pete Olson, who talked to us about birds, stuff that just, things that are in front of our
So
face.
your theme, you did tell me the theme.
Oh, our theme is invisible, which is that we're looking at the unseen structures that support the visible world. Cellular life, biology, our own biology, the biology of the world around us, language, politics, just sort of the connective tissue that holds it all together, that we don't necessarily
Okay. So how many of you heard my talk this morning and have a sense, or have come to the website and have a sense of what the work is? All right, so we're not going to talk about my work because you didn't see it, all of you. So come to the workshop, maybe. I'm doing a workshop. When am I doing that?
Tomorrow at 4:45 in this room.
On memory, and if you did see the work, or some of the work that I deal with is about memory, and that's its own sort of invisible structure, right? It's something inside your head that you're sort of constructing and that occurs or recurs in various forms and ways, and so I have a really cool little project for some of you that will show up to that. But I think to fit into your theme of kind of the idea of the invisible structure and memory, maybe we'll work a little bit from my perspective as an Alexander Technique teacher and as an artist. So that's what I mentioned to Karen when she talked to me a little bit about what you might be doing here and what you might be interested in. So in order to do that, we're going to first get rid of this spotlight on me. Oh. We don't need the computer, right? Because I'm not showing my stuff. Okay, then. Cool. Get that part of away.
We love this.
And then I'm going to make you guys look around.
Yay!
Let's move this table just right out here. Screen, so you need the screen. Yeah, can we just kind of be in sort of a semicircle without any chair.
There's right away, so yeah, I guess we'll chairs. Yeah, just a semicircle without chairs. Need a chair. Alright, I'm moving across the room. There's one room for you. There's room. Alright. Okay, and now get rid of any like extra stuff, like bags, purses, backpacks, all that. This is so much better. I just love it. That's all heavy stuff. Alright. So, tell me your names. Jeff. Will. Sherry. Matt.
Bob.
Ramon.
Caitlin.
Miranda.
Laura.
Catherine.
Keith.
Liz.
John.
What was yours?
Nate.
And back there, Stephanie. What? Stephanie.
Brian.
Good. I'm so glad you're all here. Who knows about what the Alexander technique is? Anyone taking a class here a little bit? You read about it. Yes. But nobody's been in theater class or music class. Who's a musician in here? Musician. What do you say? Trumpet. Who else? Piano? Guitar? Bass. But you've never heard of the Alexander? Right, well good, this will be a treat for you. My work with the Alexander technique started about 10 years ago when I was the director of a program for faculty, and it was a program on spirituality and the arts, and we had a theater person, a dance person, a visual arts person, and we didn't have a music person. So I went to our music department. I teach at Loyola Marymount University. I'm the head of the drawing program, by the way, and all my training is in painting and drawing. And I work a lot with animators. We have a big film and television program. I work with the animation. I pretty much teach all the animators figure drawing, and I teach anatomy in relationship to figure drawing. Can you all hear me okay?
Yeah.
And so that's just a little aside. 10 years ago, I was directing a workshop on spirituality and the arts for faculty, and we wanted these faculty members to have an experience. Who knows who John Dewey is? He wrote a wonderful book called Having Art as Experience. Art as Experience, and I highly recommend it. He was probably one of the foremost educators, reform educators in the 20th century, lived in the 1950s, was very well known and was actually a great proponent and friend of F.M. Alexander, who originated the Alexander technique. So again, a little aside, back to my spirituality workshop. The music professor came and said, "Do you think I'm going to get these faculty to sing?" And I said, "No, I don't think so." And he said, "Well, I just finished my Alexander technique certificate, so I think I could do that with him." I said, "Well, I have no idea what that is, but go, that sounds great." And so he came and talked about what the technique was. And during that time, he brought in two of the sort of international experts in the Alexander technique that are based in Los Angeles and work with a lot of the actors there. And so he was standing up talking about what the Alexander technique was. Well, the teachers would come up behind you and just work a little bit with you, thinking about, you know, your head, neck, back, and where your eyes were and that sort of thing. Just think about where you're sitting and how you're sitting. And so I was sitting something like, I mean, I don't think I was slumping any worse than any of the rest of the faculty, but I was definitely a grade 1 for the slump. So we're all sitting around the slump. And he comes up behind me, and I'm sitting here looking around, and he brings my head up. And I'm like, oh, that feels good. And he moves to the next person. So, what did you see when I did that?
What did you say? Well, your entire body just went back, like just bringing up your head and your neck, and brought your shoulders back. So.
Right, and pay attention again. Whoops, wait, I'm looking at you.
Straighten your posture.
Right. Nice. What else did you notice? What did you notice?
Hands up and just notice the confidence almost to yourself.
Felt more confident?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Oh.
So you seem like you're breathing easier too.
Okay. That's true. I'm making more space for my breath, aren't I? What are you seeing over here?
Your lungs are able to expand more.
My whole torso changes, right? Okay. So I'm sitting in my slump, and he comes up behind me, and I'm looking at the speaker, and I'm listening, and I'm watching, and he comes up behind me. What happened? What did you say? What was your name again?
Keith.
I was looking down. Why would, if I'm looking out at you in my slump, and all of a sudden he brings me up, how come my eyes are pointed down there? Sure my head's facing down now?
Well, you were like this before in your slump, so when you brought it up, your head kind of goes like this.
Okay, so I'm here and I'm looking at him, talking to me, whatever, I'm in my little slump. He brings my head up. But what happens to my eyes? Where are my eyes here? When I'm slumped, where are my eyes? I wear glasses too, if some of you wear glasses. Okay, I'm looking out at you, right here, from my glasses, from my slump. When my head position changes, what didn't change?
Your gaze.
My gaze, the position of my eyes. So my eyes were used to actually, right? If my head is like this, and I'm looking out at you, the position of my eyes is actually down, so that when my head comes up, my gaze is down. Right? So let's come back to that, the position of the eyes for a moment. When you see me do this, and I'm in my slump, let me know. I call this little game the anatomy of a slump. Let's share the anatomy. Okay. So here's my slump. And I come out of the slump. And now I go back into my slump. Right? Where does that movement happen? Where does that movement come from? What do you see moving? Where does it feel like the movement originates? You definitely see the torso doing what? Collapse and compress. So do that with me for a minute. Do a little slump. You went already. Where does it feel like that energy is when you're slumped? Yeah, you feel some tension and things like that. Okay, so watch me a little bit and come up with me.
Oh my God.
Okay. And where does that energy feel? You feeling a little tension still? So now you feel a little tension still in your back. It's a little more peaceful there. So you're thinking that movement starts slump again and come up and tell me where it feels like that movement is starting when you go into the slump, when you come out of the slump.
On your stomach? That's where I'm feeling.
Still feeling the movement in the, that's where the big movement is. That's where the big movement is. But where the movement originates from, the neck. Yeah. All movement begins in the neck. You want to stop a cat from moving? Pick it up by its neck. You want to stop a steer in the rodeo from moving? Turn its neck. Where does a big cat go after a gazelle to stop it in midair from moving? The neck. Okay? We were all four-footed, quadruped vertebrate animals, and all that movement starts in the neck. So when you see me do this, you see what kind of movement in my head and neck? Yeah. Okay. My head's going where? It went back. Is that what you said, Nate? And backward. And what went forward? Chin. Okay, my chin went forward, but we're talking about my whole skull. 8 bones of the skull plus my jaw. Where does my head go? Back and down, actually. If you look at my whole skull as I'm slumping, it goes back and down, right? So as I'm slumping, as I'm going into my slump, the skull is going back and down. So when in Alexander technique, when we come up, like you were just doing, we think of the direction of the head as forward and up. It's not a position, it's a direction. So wherever I'm going, if I'm a speed skater, if I'm, a violinist, whatever I'm thinking about, if I'm a dancer, an actor, I'm thinking about this idea of the direction of forward and up. And forward and up is the opposite of coming back and down. So this little bit of thing that's happening in my neck that you see. So just to show you how that head-neck-back relationship happens, basically, when I keep my head forward and up, I preserve my cervical spine here, right? So if you put your hand just right here at the back of your neck, kind of sit up a little bit and put your hand here, just keep your head nice forward and up, and now try to slump. Can you do it? All right. Yeah. So here's how I got caught as an artist learning the Alexander technique. Michael Fredericks was standing behind me, and he brought me up out of my slump, and my eyes were looking down, just as Nate saw there. And then he moved on to the next person. And I'm like, wait a minute, my eyes are stuck. As an artist, we are connected to what part of our sense, our eyes. My eyes are, 3 feet out in front of my body most of the time. I'm really seeing from almost out here. I'm actively looking. I'm paying attention with my eyes all the time. So I'm like, wait a minute, my eyes are stuck. You can't leave me here. It's like, sure enough, your eyes have muscles and habits. So the Alexander technique is not about, it's not about posture. It's not about position. It's about understanding how to have more ease and to use your body and your structure more efficiently. For my animation students, it's about how to draw for 8 hours without getting carpal tunnel by the time you're 22. It's 8 hours a day, because that's what they do. And it's also about just feeling more easy and confident. It gives you all kinds of poise. That's why they teach it in Juilliard for performers. That's why they teach it to Shakespearean actors. And I think artists need it. I think artists need it because first, when you get up to talk about your work or share your work with someone, you're usually sharing something that's really incredibly important to you and often comes from a difficult or intimate place. And the music students don't have to do that necessarily. Often they're getting up performing Beethoven, they're performing someone else's work. The actors are performing it in someone else's theater, plays. dancers are performing someone else's choreography, but when you get up and talk about your work, you're talking about your work, you know? And so I feel like the art students got very little training, at least at our school, got very little training in really how to present themselves. And I had been doing, so I hadn't planned on teaching this to my students necessarily, but as an artist, I was making that connection with my eyes. And I had a grant to talk about, look at critique, like the way we do critique in art school, because I found that particularly in our art school, like everybody was always saying nice, nobody wanted to say anything. Nobody really wanted to say anything. They didn't want to say anything out loud, and they didn't want to say anything, you know, that was critical. So I was going to do this grant practice on my painting class, my advanced painting class. And I got a class full of the quietest students. Oh, this is never going to work. I'm going to bring Carl in. Carl's the music teacher who I've been working with the Alexander technique. So Carl comes in, and he does his little thing. So actually, he does an exercise I'm going to do with you in a few minutes. And I've taught for 25 years. I've been a teacher, an art teacher. And this was, during the semester, my painting class, it was the most dramatic thing I'd ever seen in my 25 years of teaching. Because my students, they all make great work by the end of the semester, but they're not all able to present that great work in such a beautiful way. And this semester, because they worked with Carl and came in every week, they could choose to work with him or choose to paint. Usually they always want to just paint because they don't even want me to talk, they just want to hurry up and get to painting. And they chose to work with him. They worked with him individually. We worked with him as a class. And I thought, man, I want to be able to do this for myself and for my students. So I ended up pursuing that work, but also because of that connection with the eyeball and with the habits. And it's like, well, I wasn't even aware first that I was sitting like that, and second, that my eyeballs were sort of stuck in a position. And what does that mean? As an artist, I'm not even really aware of what my eyes are doing. I should know more about that. So yeah, I just kept having the lessons, and the lessons just were so much fun. And I brought it back to my artwork, and to my art making, and to my speaking, and to sort of my teaching, everything I did. It's sort of a foundational principle. So I'm not sure how we'll fit it into ecology, but maybe you'll sort of help me with those ideas about, we certainly can fit it into the idea of the invisible, because the thing that's invisible is the habit. And you have habits about how you draw, how you paint, how you drive your car, how you eat your supper, how you sit in a chair. It's all about habitual patterns and how we learn, which is why we're here in school. So let's do a little exercise let's do two exercises. Let's do the first one that just, some of you are sitting, Matt, and what was your name? Ramon, sitting with your hands like this. What was your name? This. Okay, so sit like them. They have their hands, fingers crossed. How does that feel? Pretty good, pretty normal, right? You were already sitting there. Okay. All right, just take your fingers, look at your hands for a moment, and now just cross your fingers the other way. So different thumbs on top and a different feel. So how does that feel? Weird. Probably especially weird to people whose pattern is to maybe sit like, did you sit like that very often with your hands crossed? Where's your fingers?
Face Catholic. Say I'm sorry.
All right, so have it there. All right, who else was sitting in? Somebody was sitting like this. Sit with your arms crossed. All right, now cross them the other way. You know, think about this.
I don't even know how to do it. That's hard. Figure out what the other way is. Right?
Okay, so that's part of your habit, you know, and drawing and painting and art making and pot throwing and all those things that we do as artists, we are coordinated. We're like athletes, right? We're just hand-eye coordination. We might as well be throwing a baseball, you know, and that's a lot about habits. And sometimes those habits serve us in a successful way, like we know how to do something and we can repeat it. And sometimes those habits get in our way. So I'm just interested in having you explore those habits which we're unaware of and making those invisible habits more visible so that we can look at what interferes with our art making, our art enjoyment of life, or, you know, our feeling comfortable when we're walking across the street or driving our car, whatever that is. Okay, so habits. Habits is just the way, what you do habitually that you don't think about. And when you don't think about it, you're not aware of it, and when you're not aware of it, you don't have a choice. So, you know, art making is about making choices, more and awareness. And so that's a big piece of how I think the Alexander technique fits into the work that we do as artists. Let's do another little exercise, and then I'll tell you, I haven't told you the story about the Alexander, right? We just told you a little bit. All right, so stand up and his partner. And anyone can do this exercise. It's not hard. Do you have an even number of people? Does anyone need a partner? Everybody's got somebody? All right, well, I'm going to actually demonstrate on someone here. I'm going to grab that again. Wait, sorry. No problem. All right, so here, say he's my partner here, and I'm going to stand behind him like this, all right? And I'm going to just very lightly put my hands on his head, and I'm just going to he's going to let me guide him, right? And he's just going to let his neck be as free as he can. He's just going to go ahead and let me move his head. So you can go back to the program, right? And that's what you're going to do. Just stand one person in front of the other, and just let them, just real gently with your hands, just move your head. Okay, I got my shirt. You can grab my head. We're going to switch in a minute, so it doesn't matter who's in front right now. Yeah. All right, everybody feel that? Does it feel pretty easy to move the head? If you're in the front, you're just relaxing, letting that person just be. Let you look around, you trust it a little bit. All right, so stop for a moment. All right, now the person in front is going to still stand there, but this time I want you to make a fist. Really make a fist. And keep that fist. Make that fist. If you're in the front, you're making a fist, and the person behind is now going to just go ahead and again turn the head. You keep making the fist, and they're going to turn the head. All right, and let the fist go. What was interesting about that? Harder to move. Really harder to move, wasn't it? All right, let's try it again. This time, person in the front, let's put your hands, right? Your hands are connected to your shoulder girdle. Oh, no, wait, same partner. Sorry, not what you said. We're going to do a different one. Same partner, same person in front. Sorry. We'll switch in a minute. But there's, you know, you might think, well, why does it seem harder to move that neck? Well, the hands are connected to what? The shoulder girdle. The shoulder girdle is connected to what? It's kind of connected into the neck. That makes sense. Maybe my hands are tight, you know, my neck's tight too. So let's try it now with your knees. So I want you to just lock your knees back and tighten your knees. And the person in the back, see how that feels.
What are we doing?
You're locking your knees in the front and you're moving the head behind.
Oh my God, that's even worse. It is.
All right, let it go. Last one, grip your toes. How many of you like to grab on with your toes a little bit? Grip your toes and let that person behind you try to move head. You ready, Karen?
I gotta hold on to grab with my toes.
Okay. Lindsay's at it completely stuck over here. So now you can switch. All right? Okay, yeah, shake out a little bit. So the person behind is to just really easily move the person's head in front. The person in front, just letting them move very fast.
No, it's
No,
it's not.
Well, no, I mean, the tendency is to move it yourself.
Yeah, you're all working. Okay, so I'm just going to get to your head. Tell me your name again. All right, so now back to the center. Person in front, you're gripping, you're making a fist. You're making a big fist.
I'll never
Keep
be
that
that
fist,
way.
keep that tension, and now try to move the head.
This is like coming
Okay, let the fist go. There you go. Think about grabbing the knees. So you're locking the knees. You're locking the knees back.
Your head is very attached.
Very attached.
We have our ideas about where our head should go.
And come back.
I'm trying.
All right, let go of those knees. And last one, grab the floor with your toes. Grab the floor with your toes. Gripping at the floor.
I think you're just
Really
supposed to
good.
look inside the
Let's see what happens on that difference. Okay, very good. Shake out a little bit. So how was that?
I think it was interesting that they got farthest away from that gave them most sense.
Surprising. And how many of you think sometimes you grip your toes?
All the time.
Oh, I do.
Yeah, you're even aware of it, gripping your
When I'm
toes.
driving, I drive with my toes, not with my whole foot.
Yeah.
That's gonna change.
Oh,
And what about when you're drawing or painting or kicking the potter's wheel or doing your art stuff? Are you aware of anything?
Whenever I especially use like a pedal or anything, that like your entire side eventually, especially like a really bony ass, it just looks sweet. Because you're like just, it's like gridlock, just everything's
Right on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, it's just about becoming more aware and paying attention. It's all very interesting. We have this great, our bodies are so responsive, and yet sometimes we're so, our minds are thinking about something else, and so we sort of take ourselves to another place. These habits are habits, I have a little bit of this in my memory lecture for the workshop, habits that we formed as children. One of the funny things is, I don't look very much like my brothers and sisters. I have 2 brothers and a sister. We don't really look alike, we're not, our personalities aren't alike. But we have the same attention patterns. It's so interesting. One time we were all standing in my brother's, he's got a big kitchen, a big homestead, and it was hot, and we were all in shorts. And my sister-in-law looked at it, and what we were doing something like we were looking out the window at something. And my sister-in-law says, "My God, you all have the exact same legs, and you're all holding your arms in the exact same way." It's like, I'm sure if we looked at pictures of my parents, that's where we learned it from, those habits. And we also have habits as a community of humans where, one of the big habits when kids are drawing, what one of the coordinated body habits are?
Drawing maybe this. Oh, that's right.
Tongue out of the mouth. Yeah. We run a program at our school called Art Smart where we go in and give kids art lessons. And we have thousands of pictures of kids drawing, and 999 of those pictures, the kids' tongues are sticking out of their mouths.
whether it's like part of our concentration and sort of focus. And I'm extremely left-handed, so my habits of drawing and left-handedness and even understanding space and setting up at the easel, right? One of the things I would do is like the whole class, they're all right-handed, they've got their easel and they're set up like this, so that's how I'm set up. It's like, no, I should be this direction, right, when I'm at the easel, so that I'm open to what I'm looking at and my arm is moving from here. So there's lots of ways we can start becoming more aware of our habits. So habits is a big part of it, and awareness is a big part of it.
You ever get kids that make noise while they're like trying to like? When I was a kid, I used to make the noises of whatever I was drawing, like a rocket ship.
No, I think you should bring that back. It probably would be great in drawing classes if I could get on my students like make the noise of the thing. Yeah, the kids do hum a lot. But usually, if they're making the rocket ship noises, they're pretty. If you ask them, they would know they were doing that. But with humming and things like that, not aware of it at all. And usually that's just a factor of, you know, concentration and also sometimes just maybe enjoyment or the way in which we, you know, our minds and bodies are connected. How the Alexander technique started, and the other piece of it is about being easy. How many times have some of you felt a little bit uncomfortable during a critique? Where you're like hoping like they hurry up, the bell rings or whatever before they get to your piece, you know? Or you're not sure what you're going to say, so you can't even listen to what the person who's talking about there will be saying because you're busy like thinking, what am I going to say about what I'm going to do? All right. So the Alexander technique is about being present and being easy in yourself. So being present, if you all read James Joyce, there's that character in the novel, I forget his name. Mr. Smith. It's in Ulysses. The one that's he's man who exists, who lives 3 feet in front of his body.
Oh, who is that? That's such a funny idea.
Yeah, lives 3 feet in front of his body. Like we're always ready to react and to respond. And part of it is, you know, our sort of fight and flight response, right? So watch what happens when I go into like a startle pattern, right? Startle. Isn't that the typical like notion of a startle? What happens to my head? Down and back. Why does it do that? Do you know what part of the brain is right here at the base of the occiput? You do. Awesome. At the amygdala. And what does the amygdala do? You know what
That's the fear.
Yeah, it's a fight, flight, or freeze. I never thought I did fight or flight, but I realized that until they added the freeze on there, it's like, oh yeah, no, that's the one I do, right? Stage fright. This is why actors use it. So it's wonderful for combating stage fright. So it's about being easy and feeling easy with even when you are being startled or, you know, fearful, you're able to sort of come back to a more easy place within yourself so that you can make a choice or a better reaction or response. So athletes use it too. And it's about being present. So I'm not paying attention to something or anticipating something happening, like in a critique, waiting for them to get to my piece. I can really be present when they're talking about your piece because I'm easy enough so that when they get to my piece, I feel confident in my response and I can make a response, and I'm not having fear interfere with what I'm doing. So Alexander technique can also take away some of that interference. It usually comes from a fearful place. We can think about different kinds of things that interfere. Sometimes it's internal, like worry, right, about something. Sometimes it's external, like you know, it might just have to do with like I have a pulled muscle. You know, that can be an interference too. So people come to the Alexander technique because they're performers. Musicians, those sorts of people, but also sometimes people who have pain because they're trying to cope with managing the tension in their body in relationship to pain. I didn't have any of those. I was not a performer. I was not in pain. But boy, I felt like I could be a little more easy. I was really aware that I could be more easy, and I really wanted to be. And I felt like I was a very present person, but I also noticed how distracting when I got a little bit nervous that was for me. So back to the origins of, do you have any questions or anything so far? Is this interesting to you? Invisible stuff? Okay. We'll stay on this idea. So, so Alexander technique began with F.M. Alexander, who was a Victorian elocutionist. You know what an elocutionist is? It's great. It used to be sort of like vaudeville. They'd go around and be like an orator, give a speech, and he would recite parts of Shakespeare. And he lived in Australia. And he became very well known, very popular. And all of a sudden, every time he would perform, he'd start to lose his voice. And his voice would disappear. And he went to the doctor to see what was wrong. The doctor said, I can find no medical explanation for why you are losing your voice on stage. And so he couldn't find any answers, and so he went about, put up a series of mirrors, trying to practice and recite and see what he was doing. Asked his friends who were actors to watch him, help him to pay attention. And it took him a very long time. I can't remember exactly how long this process was, but sort of watching himself, watching what he did, watching for his habits. And what he started noticing was that, you know, that discomfort that you had when you put your fingers in a new way? He found that there were things that he was taught to do as an actor that he would do, that when he didn't do them felt very strange. We call it debauched kinesthesia. It's like an odd feeling of, you know, it's an incorrect feedback in terms of your physical response. But it felt very strange for him. And yet, it would allow him to to project better, to make sound. He wouldn't be having the tension in his throat that he had before. So he discovered this idea about direction, about the forward and up part of the head, about, he was actually tended to sometimes also pull his head back this way, and it would depress on his vocal cords and impair his work. Now, these discoveries might have died with Alexander in Australia, except for that at the turn of the century, Alexander took this work to London. And London and Paris at the turn of the century were, you know, vibrant, urban, cutting-edge, exciting places for art and theater particularly. And he was, because he was a Shakespearean actor, he caught on with the actors in England, and soon enough it became standard practice and standard training for all the schools there, in the theater schools. And he began then training people how to help people become more aware of themselves in what we call how you use yourself, like how you work with your structure and your use and all that sort of thing. And it's really simple. A lot of times you're just sometimes we work on the table, almost like a massage table. Sometimes we work on the chair. Sometimes we just walk. Sometimes it's in performance where you're playing your instrument or you're at the easel. So that's what an Alexander technique lesson is like. Sometimes it's taught in a group, but more and more it's a kind of one-on-one practice, because just like your art teachers help you become more aware of what you see or what you're not seeing, the Alexander technique teachers helping you become more aware of, you know, your habits, how you're moving, where you're holding tension. Sometimes tension you didn't even realize you had. I'm sure if I ask each one of you right now to just scan your body and how it feels, and just figure out how to let go of some part, some piece of tension that you feel. So just let yourself be a little less tense. And now scan the body one more time. Let's just close our eyes. Normally, Alexander technique is done with your eyes open to kind of keep your awareness and not sort of zombie out. But I think it's helpful right now to just close our eyes, and I'm just going to take you through the parts of the body and see if you can notice any extra tension you don't need. So we talked about the toes. Let's think about just releasing the toes forward and out, letting them rest easy. Releasing any tension in the toes. And then all along the bottom of the foot. So the outside of the foot, the inside of the foot, balancing equally between the heel and the toe. Balance is such an important thing. You all know about the little sesamoid bones between the big toe and the second toe. The two little tiny, some of the tiniest bones in your body. And they actually vibrate 90 times a minute to help give you your system feedback without your sense of balance. So they're keeping you from, that's what's keeping you from falling over. Two little tiny bones between your big toe and your second toe. All right, and releasing extra tension in your calf. You're not really using your legs right now too much, except for just a little bit for balance, but not a lot. So you don't need to have a lot of tension in the calf or in the thigh. And now some of you are sitting on harder chairs and some of you are sitting on softer chairs. What part of some of you taken figure drawing and you know about the pelvis, what part of the bones, what part of your pelvis here are you sitting on? Sitting more on a tailbone? Some of you feel like your pelvis is rolled forward a little bit. I'm going to have you do another little moment before we move up to the rest of the body. So if you can, these chairs aren't the perfect chairs, but they'll work. See if you can sit with the point of the chair between your two legs. So you're sort of sitting like I am. There we go. All right, now in just a minute, I'm just going to have you roll forwards, and I'm just going to have you hang like this. And make sure your neck is relaxed, the top of your head is parallel to the floor, and you're just hanging there, and you can just let your arms even rest on the floor. Now don't re-grip in your toes, so you're just letting your toes release. And just breathe a little bit in this position too. And then come up real slow. And just turn back to your chair. Let's see, now where is your pelvis? What are you sitting? Where are you sitting? So you were sitting more on your tailbone before, and now you feel like you're more vertical. Do you feel your sit bones? If you're on one of these hard chairs, you probably do. You should feel two little points on a skeleton here. The bottom, those little rockers on the bottom of the pelvis, those are really important. Those are your sit bones. You want to have those bones in contact when you're sitting down. You want to have those bones in contact with the chair, because the heart, even though like it feels kind of hard, doesn't it? Right. Okay, because you're not, when you're on your tailbone, you've got the bottom of your butt sort of cushioning, right? When you're up on the rockers, you're right on those bones. But what are those bones doing? They're giving a signal to your entire spine through your nervous system to move up instead of this, which is moving down. So if you slump down, you feel that energy going down, right? And you can roll right back up on the pelvis, up onto those sit bones, and feel that energy moving up. Now, you might get tired in this position. That's because there's little tiny muscles all along the spine that are strengthened by that signal. They're actually, I forget if it's anaerobic or aerobic muscles. That's why when people lay bedridden for a long time, and then their muscle fibers actually change, so that they sort of lose that tone in the muscles. These muscles are, it's like your heart, right? It's generating its own strength. Same thing with those little muscles that are moving up the spine. And sitting on those, using those sit bones properly helps with that strength and that whole expanse of your back. So, once you've done this exercise for a while, you understand that your back starts getting stronger, and you can feels very comfortable to sit here. You don't feel like you're pushing yourself up. That's one of the things we tend to do is we either do like, I'm relaxed, right, or I'm collapsed, or, oh, I got to sit up straight, and I'm pushing up, which is also a lot of energy. So I can't sustain that energy. So then pretty soon I'm collapsing again. So we want to not be on those extremes. That's the place you want to be operating from in terms of your poise and feeling easy and comfortable. So if we go back now, if you can, stay on those hip bones for as long as you can. But now we're going to help release any other tensions that sort of crept into our upper back. So starting with the sit bones, the lower back, you can even let go a little bit more in the lower back if you're sort of rolling yourself forward. Women tend to roll forward on their pelvis, and men tend to roll back a little bit. And take a nice deep breath in. Your rib cage expands out towards your back. So when you breathe in, you're actually breathing into your back, into the lower part. Those ribs that aren't attached at the bottom of the spine. So you're taking a nice deep breath into that. And then all around the chest. This is a place where we tend to tighten up when we're a little bit afraid or nervous. All up here and through the chest. So just think about letting go, easing any tension through the chest. And if you want some support, you can scoot back on your chair and let maybe the back of the chair help you sit up a bit. And then let's see. Why don't you bring, you're kind of close together here. Just bring your shoulders down and back away from your arms and let your hands hang a little bit. And think about releasing that energy from, on your left arm, from your elbow to your wrist, to your fingertips. And your right arm from your shoulder to your elbow, to your wrist, to your fingertips. Another deep breath in, and then just go ahead and rest your hands really gently on your legs, with your elbows out a little bit. And I want you to think wide across the clavicle. So thinking about this, how many of you in your drawing classes, when you're drawing the still life, for example, or doing representational work, working with the model, do you line yourself up with the model? Do you have your access line here, right through? It goes right from the pelvis to the clavicle, right here. Right, so I can tell if you're slightly off from vertical or horizontal. It's like taking a kinesthetic relativity measurement. You all use sighting, right? Okay, this is just a way of sighting actually internally with your body. So you can, I teach all my animation students and my art students this. So they're thinking about this sort of plumb line, like right through the body. So I can sort of always line myself up with what's sort of straight or not. And along with that goes a cross line, like a horizontal line across the clavicle here, a widening line. If I have a rubber band and I talk about this lengthening that happens as my head goes forward and up, is like a little tiny more movement in the spine. It's a little bit of a stretching out of the spine, just a little bit of movement there. And if I thought about that as just the slight movement of a rubber band, and I wrap the rubber band around the middle, all of a sudden, what do? Now I can only move from here up. Right? So that's what happens. How many of you get sore right up here when you're drawing a lot of pain? All right? That tension up in here is constricts this way. Any tension in the body, when the body constricts, the tension moves towards the center. And when it moves towards the center, where is it restricting movement? All along the spine. Okay? It interrupts the head-neck-back relationship. So, and you can think about, if you don't believe me with this idea that tension moves inward and narrows the body, think about what happens, like, if I make, like, you know, if I'm really tensing my face, what does my face do? It pulls in. What does this do? That's where wrinkles come from, right? You're like pushing that all together. So it's the same thing that's happening up here. You're moving this way instead of moving that way. So a really good sense is to think about this width across the shoulders. And for guys, that's usually like, you like to think about that across the shoulders.
Sometimes girls, especially, and also across the hips, women sometimes tend to want to narrow those spaces in. But you should think broad across the shoulders, okay? Also, this is important for how many people are painting and drawing people in here? Yeah, almost all of you. So super important for you to understand anatomy in relationship to this idea of narrowing and expanding there. When you go to, let's see, let's do it like this. Water right here. Take a step. Okay, Heather. You're going to reach out and grab this bottle. Okay, how'd that feel? Fine. Where did that movement start from? Weren't thinking about that so much. All right, let's try it again. This time think about where the movement starts from. Your back's involved, yeah. How about with your arm? Okay, yeah. Your shoulder? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So most of us, when we go to grab something, we move from, if we're moving our arm, right? You're moving from, kind of think about your shoulder, right? Okay. Does anybody think about anything else than the shoulder there? Your back?
No, the back.
Oh, the pec. Okay, pec muscle right in here. Right. We definitely use all those muscles as we're doing that. John, do you know where the first joint of the arm is?
Shoulder.
That's what almost everybody thinks. That's really what everybody thinks. You know about the shoulder girdle? The whole shoulder girdle, when you look at the skeleton, is the shoulder blades, right? And the shoulder blades come around, and you've got, you know, your wrist, the forearm, the two bones in the lower arm, the one bone here, the humerus connects at the shoulder, and at the clavicle, right up here, right? Right. The first joint of the arm is right here at the clavicle. Right? Right. If you're a bird, you know that.
Because you're flying.
Right. Well, because we think of the shoulder as having an incredible amount of rotation, right? Because it's what kind of joint? Do you know what kind of joint your shoulder? Ball and socket, same as the hip, right? How come I can move my arm so much better than I can move my leg? Even it's the same kind of joint. Why? Right, the angle of the femur in the hip socket, it's much deeper in the pelvis, right? And here, the rotator. Anybody ever had a rotator cuff injury?
Yes.
You know what the #1 injury in the NFL is? Rotator cuff. You know why? What if I'm doing the NFL? Boom.
Shoulder.
Right, boom. How easy is it? Not so easy to knock my hip out of the joint, right? But this ball and socket is really held in there just by a lot of muscle. Because the first joint of my arm is here at the clavicle. This is where the shoulder, the only point structurally, I mean, there's muscles involved definitely with pecs and all kinds of deltoids. All those muscles are all connected in. But the first joint of the arm is right here at the clavicle because that's the only place the shoulder girdle, the bones, are attached to the skeleton, right? They're attached right here at the clavicle, right at the first rib here. So when you think about moving your arm, whether you're drawing or whether you're reaching out for this, if you think about moving from the clavicle, think about initiating or allowing the clavicle, allowing this joint to be part of that movement. You notice any difference?
Well, I don't think I was doing it right because I pinched myself.
Maybe because I put you under that spot. Well, try doing it now, just from the, here, stand up and do it. All right, so this time you're just gonna do it, I want you to only think about moving from your shoulder. Okay, so you got the bottle, right? No problem there. All right, it's how you got the bottle.
Okay,
So now gonna think about coming up to reach the bottle. Okay.
Put your hand on your flap.
All right. I'm gonna ask Matt to hold the bottle, and you're not done yet. So
Oh, I'm not.
okay, all right, you're just gonna hold the bottle to let me grab it, all right?
Okay.
And you're gonna come over here, and I'm just gonna, it's all right if I cover my hands, I can't help it. All right, well, first we're just gonna put your feet a little more than 50 feet. Okay, and just gonna be easy on your ankles just for a moment. It's nice and wide across the shoulder. And really a little bit more easy. Okay. I'm going to take your arm up, and you're just going to let me have your arm. Right. Just let me have your arm. Okay. That's okay. This is really hard to do. Wait till it's your turn. There you go. Awesome. Yes. She's giving me the wave arm. Can you give me a little more? Just think of this like a table. You're just releasing your whole arm. Okay. We're not going to reach for the bottom. That's it. You can just hang on to it for a sec. I'm going to work with your arm. Okay, so I can actually, I mean, if I get my hand underneath her armpit here, I can just lift that whole piece up. I can come around behind you, and I can lift this whole piece up. This is her shoulder girdle, right? Okay, right off her shoulder here. So now, when you think about it, I want you to be really aware of this widening all the way across. Right here. Matt, can you get to the bottom? Well, I'm not looking for anything. I'm just thinking about you moving from the clavicle. Do you think you did that time?
It felt less tense, so I think that it's, I know that I carry a lot of tension up here, so I'm not surprised that I'm a little bit short for you.
No, it's not any problem. Let's see, Matt. You hold the bottle for him. Clavicle, from the clavicle. Let it back.
I have to tense thinking about it.
You have to tense to think about it.
Oh, define it.
It's like I have to tense right.
To find it. Oh, you guys are making it so hard. All you have to do is think the thought.
And the arm follows.
And the arm follows.
That's why it's hard to isolate them.
It's just your awareness.
Yeah.
If you just think, clavicle, where's my clavicle? And just back that. Why don't we get partners again and play with this a little bit? Get something out of your backpack that you can, or purse that you can hand back and forth, and find someone and try it with opposite arms. Can you try it Try it crisscrossing. Try it with different arms. Either way, just master this. You can explore, reaching out to it. Take that thing, just an awareness of the clavicle. So you're not having to get too sure about it. All you have to do is just think about your clavicle. Pay attention to it. By just thinking about your shoulder. And then you'll feel the difference. That's my body then. This is so intense. There's no, okay, let me talk about this for a minute. This question came up like, am I doing it right? And there's really no, I don't want to sound contradictory here. What we're after is awareness and presence. So, I mean, I don't know when the last time you spent 5 minutes handing something back and forth to someone trying to figure out how your arm works. But, you know, probably you haven't done that a lot before. So just doing that as an exercise allows you to bring that awareness to your body. But more than that, we're not looking for a position, and we're not really looking for a right, you know, we're looking for an awareness. How many of you, when you do your paintings and drawings or your artwork, feel like you work intuitively? And how would you describe intuition? What you mean when you said, yeah, I work intuitively. What does that mean?
Without thinking about it. So without thinking about it.
Okay, without thinking about it.
Going into a habit of pattern, honestly, but also using your mind when you're thinking about each part, like more of a habit, so pattern.
Are you sure you're not saying you're feeling your way through it?
That's
part of it.
A habit feeling your way through your problems, figuring it out with your mind as well, and then using your arm and your thought process to move what you muscle.
It's more unconscious. You're just doing it. Okay. I think you're all kind of touching on it. The etymology of the idea of intuition is that it's actually knowledge derived from sensory input. So it's not like you're coming to a decision from a rational, okay, this, and then this, and then this, and then this, and I know I'm right. It's a sense of rightness that comes out of all your sensory awareness. Things you're conscious of, like the way you're moving your arm or how something feels, or things you're unconscious of. You know? So it comes out of that sensory input. You know, that's all around us, but that we're usually not so much paying attention to. So what I'm asking you to do is only just pay attention to your arm, knowing that on the skeleton, you know, and on your skeleton, on your structure, like this is where you're attached. How does knowing that, or how does that make you have the experience of reaching out to grab something different? You know, and you can try it and experiment with it a little bit. So I'm not going to say, like, do it exactly like this and you'll feel it. You're not really after so much a feeling as an insight. So if you can feel, if you have that awareness more when you're turning slightly, that's fine. If you have that awareness more when you're doing it with a more open palm, that's fine too. It probably has a lot more to do with the way you're using your muscles and some of your habits with that. You know, and another day you might try it differently. You know, or in another activity, like holding the steering wheel when you're driving home tonight. Think about this part becoming wider and your elbows going out. And think about not doing this, right? But doing this. I'm sure you all feel like you hunch over when I would in the icy cold here when you're driving.
Oh, it's
like, yeah. Like, you know, but I mean, physiologically coming in like that, even against the cold, that sort of, you know, response, it doesn't make you warmer. It doesn't help your warmth. So it's a sort of a natural response, right? But I can make it's really only making tension in my body, so I can choose to do something else. So it's so play with that a little more, that passing back and forth like an object. And I see if Keith, can you guys do it 3 ways here?
Oh, here, I
all right.
let's do it.
And just tell me as I'm walking around, or tell your partner, what are you noticing? What are you noticing about your arm? And you don't need to be stiff while you're doing it. You can go ahead and just be easy through the rest of your body. It's very like
Yes, I like pay attention to every interaction. So
So now just stay standing for a minute and give me some feedback. Anything that you noticed? Does it feel a little bit? It's very subtle. It's really subtle work. It's not going to feel dramatic. But did anybody have anything that they thought was interesting?
When you actually think about it, it almost becomes a point of workout. Because you're actually, you start to feel the muscle a little more than normal, kind of like if you're saying a pose or something like that. And it feels like it's actually used more than what you're kind of doing the same thing you do, but you just.
You're using it differently, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, for sure. That can feel. And in fact, this ties back into the idea of learning, like relearning. That's a very simple thing that we're doing. But if I'm working with you on something more complicated, like the way you speak or play your cello or sitting and standing, it's surprising how relearning a habit or unlearning a habit and relearning a different way or making a different choice is an extremely, it is a lot of work. When I started training in the Alexander technique, the first 6 weeks, you go as a sort of special student before you start into the teacher training, which lasts for 3 years, 3 hours a day, every day. So it's a pretty intense, I felt like it was, as intense as doing my MFA or any of my other degrees that I did. And the first 6 weeks I was training, when you're a little kid and you're outside and you just played so hard and you just are falling asleep, you can't keep your eyes open, your whole body is crashing. That was how I would be my dinner time, even after my 3-hour day, because my mind, because I was relearning this stuff and working so hard to retrain my mind that I would just be falling asleep in my dinner every night. And then pretty soon you're building up your muscles and you're building up your capacity to understand and to learn. Because in this work, it's not like somebody's trying to, you go to the chiropractor and they do something to you, try to fix you, and then 2 weeks later you still feel oh, my shoulder aches back, right? Or you have a nice massage and then the next day, it's still there. You're really relearning. Because your habits change, the way you're going about things change, your awareness changes, and that doesn't go away. So, I can't give you a big Alexander moment necessarily tonight, but I can introduce these little awarenesses to you so that tomorrow when you're in drawing class and you're standing at your easel, you're thinking about the height of your easel and where your foot is and where your hand is and how you're moving and if you're locking your knees or not. And you're kind of having introducing a little more of that ease into your body will introduce also that ease into the way the energy comes out of the brush and the way the energy comes out of your pencil. So, questions about any of that or other art stuff? Thank you. Oh, wait, we better do that again. You don't like clavicle. There we go. Much better. All right. So let's see. What can I show you next? Do you feel a little more easy than when we started? Okay. All right. So while you're sitting, just again, find your sit bones a little bit. Undo anything that's gotten undone. Redone. Think about where your head is so that you can think about that idea of your head just being gently balanced on top of the spine. Do you know where the top of the spine is? It's way up here. We usually think of it as the neck, or most people do. You might not, since you've had figure drawing, but a lot of times we think of it as right, here's where my spine meets my skull. And in reality, it's way up here at the atlanto-occipital joint, way, way, way up here by the ears,
right about in the center of the forehead. And that joint works in such a way that our nervous system actually balances the skull. Again, there's a little balancing going on, a little nervous system conversation going on there, where it's not like our head is just sitting on top of the spine. It's not like stuck there like a ball on a pole, right? It's sort of almost floating there a little bit. There's energy going up through the spine that just supports that really subtle movement of those joints, of that joint. And another important joint in the skull, so we'll just kind of think about our head moving for a minute. Why don't we actually just feel that place right? Close your eyes and put your hands right at this sort of little indentation above the jaw by the ears. Okay, and then just imagine your fingers touching each other. That's right about at the top of that joint. So you can just let your fingers move your head by pushing one way or the other. You can do side to side, or you can even think about yes, no, right? Because that joint allows for all of that movement right there at the top, which is pretty neat. If you move your fingers down just a bit, you end up at what joint? Jaw. And we have one jaw. We don't think of it as two jaws, but one jaw. Way up here is the joint of the jaw. And do you know what kind of a joint that is? Hinge jaw. Is it like a hinge, like my elbow's a hinge though? What's different about it? It can pop out and do what? Just move around, right? Dislocate. Really, we're just like snakes. Do you know that snakes actually split their skulls? Their skulls can move half in order to like eat the little mouse and stuff. It's pretty amazing. So yeah, we actually unhinge a little bit right there. We have a little ball called the condyle. It's like a little tiny ball in that hinge joint that can actually kind of dislocate. And do you know how it or the direction that it dislocates? So you think of forward. Okay. You think of your jaw as just dropping and opening down, right? But it actually, when it unhinges, it hinges out and down. Out and down. So when who grinds their teeth in here? Clenches their teeth a little bit and get tight in there, right? What happens when you're clenching your teeth? Where is it pulling? Back. All right, so what you need to do is think about allowing that release in the jaw, allowing that joint to open up. Because when you clench your teeth, you're actually, irritating that little joint as well. And I have kind of a funny story. I used to grind my teeth a bit, and I went to the dentist, and he goes, I'm going to make you a mouth guard to wear at night. And I'm like, I don't want a mouth guard. He's like, you better wear one, because I already had cracked a little tooth. And he's like, I said, I'm doing this Alexander work, and I used to wake up in the morning and this would be kind of sore. And I said, I'm doing this Alexander work, and I'm not waking up that way anymore. I really think I'm changing the way I use my jaw. And he said, you might be able, and he goes, well, how are you doing that? I'm like, well, through awareness. He's like, you might be able to do that during the daytime, but you're not doing that while you're sleeping. It's like, really? I really think I am. I'm waking up, I don't feel it. He goes, I go, give me 3 more months, And sure enough, I came back and it's like, I'm really doing great with this. I do not need a mouth guard. And we talked about it a little more, and he looked at my mouth, and my bite had been getting off, and it was all fine. And he's like, all right, well, when you get your certification, I want your first. I want to be one of your students, And so here's a little exercise for those of you with the jaw. And it's a little weird, so you don't have to do it with me, but it's pretty cool, so you can. You're going to get down on all fours, like your knees and your hands like this. And I'm going to open my mouth like this, and I'm going to just let my tongue be really thick. So it is kind of weird, huh?
So you just open your mouth. Open your mouth and just let the tongue be really thick, like blah, 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 blah. Alright? Letting your mouth just fall open. Keep your head and neck and back aligned. So you don't want your head to drop down. You want your head to be, bring your head up there. Yeah, just kind of aligned with the neck there. Right, good. Good. And think about the head kind of coming through.
I hope that.
Yeah, just really releasing right at that jaw, right there at that jaw. Letting it fall open. All right. Can you feel that jaw releasing forward and down? Yeah. Like how it goes out and then down? All right. And why in this position would this work well for your jaw? Gravity. Gravity, exactly. All right. So you can come back. Wow. That just feels really good. Did not feel good? Right, and there's all kinds of muscles. Muscles around your ears. Who knew you had all those muscles around your ears? Remember the name of this muscle? From the, find your mastoid process. That's the big bump right behind your ears. And that line, that muscle that comes all the way down, where does it connect to? Clavicle. Right. In two places. Sternocleidomastoid. Do you know what it does? Yeah, this, right? If you, I was doing an anatomy demonstration one time with my students, and I'm like, all right, find the sternocleidomastoid, put it on the skeleton. They were using rubber bands, and so they put a rubber band on, and all of a sudden, and they were holding it, you know, while they did it, and they took their hands off, and all of a sudden, the skeleton like turned its head. And it's like, yeah, that's just how it works. We've got these rubber bands here, and they get what? That's one of the many muscles in the body, the important muscles in the body that go across from back to front, right? So, and you got lots and lots of muscles in your neck. Your spine is this big, and the rest of your neck is all muscles. So you can see how tension in the neck can come from any number of muscles back there, right? You got lots of muscles around the vocal cords. All of this is really pretty incredible stuff. So all we're doing is really trying to think about and be aware of our anatomy, and then think about how we can work with it and not work against it quite so much. So that little thing that I just showed you with your jaw is just really great for releasing that tension that's up in there. Close your eyes for just a moment. And now become aware of just your eye and the socket of the eye. And think about the muscles all around the eye, across the forehead, and all across the forehead at the temple. And softening the tissue in front of the eyes. So think about softening the tissue in front and softening behind. Releasing all the muscles around the mouth, across the nose, across the cheek. And taking a nice deep breath in, again into the back. And out. And open your eyes. Look around. Take a nice easy look around. Just easy with the neck. Don't have to worry about it too much. Just look around, look up, look at the ceiling. What time is it? See what you notice around the room. Do you know that Japanese concept of the soft eyes? Sometimes they have the drawing soft. When I had my first experience with Alexander technique, and I found that my eyes were stuck, it was really like, I mean, it was kind of funny in a way, but I was also in a little bit of a panic because it was such a strong, I all of a sudden had such a strong perception of my eyeballs being sort of stuck in this one position. And it's amazing how fixed we get in our gaze. And I think particularly in relationship to the computer and staring at like the computer screen that way. I'm sure some of you have had
ophthalmologists or optometrists tell you to like look away from the computer screen or look off into the distance at times and work with your focus in that way. It's a kind of a practice of in Aikido, this idea of soft eyes. Nobody's done this before? No? All right, so what you want to do, when you just think about softening the tissues around your eyes, but you can also think about just like looking ahead, looking around. But while you're looking ahead, you also have a sense of what's in your peripheral vision, what's around you. Awareness all around you. This is in martial arts, right? You're even having awareness behind you. What's behind you, what's all around you. Always having that awareness. And not fixing on something, not fixing your gaze. This happens to me when I teach with my students in beginning drawing, where we're working on the still life, right? And there's several objects and they have to draw all the objects together. And they're trying to look at the whole thing at once or make those relationships. But as soon, and they might do that pretty well as they're sighting and laying things out, but as soon as they start shading in or refining, what happens? What happens to you when you're drawing like that? Yeah, you get focused in, you could, just we have an hour and a half left of class, you can spend the whole hour and a half on that cup, right? And everything else you don't get to. It's that kind of fixation. We get pulled in. We constantly, our eyes pull us in, and that focus is wonderful because it helps us to see those details, but when we're seeing like that, we're missing the big picture, and we're also using our eye muscles and our eyes in a way that they're not, that's not optimal. In other words, your eyes are made to be able to look out at the distance, look close up, look to the side, have a sense of movement all around you all the time. So you want, when you're doing gesture drawings and trying to get a sense of the whole, your eyes moving constantly right through the form. So you want to, it's kind of the like Alexandroid look. It's sort of like a zombie look. You can kind of get in this sort of stare pattern with that sort of thing. So think about your eyes too in relationship to your habits and your whole body, and particularly when you're drawing or being. Anything that you want to share about that? Things with your art? I'd be curious to hear more from you. I feel like I've been talking a lot.
I'm going to change the orientation of my drawing board. Usually, I have one that has a handle that goes like this, but I like to get tight with very small pieces and just clench. My shoulders rise up, my neck tightens up and goes in. So I'm thinking about sitting up straight, tilting it forward, taping my work up instead of having it rest and using that softly. I want to experiment now that you helped me.
Yeah, I would experiment with that. I would think about also coming up this way, right? So that you're not coming to the board, but you're bringing the board up to you, moving your paper around. Like I would do that experiment and see how that feels, and do a bunch of different, you can experiment in all kinds of ways with that, and find something that really works for you. We're often working on our work for a long time, and part of you being able to sustain your energy is exactly what you're saying. If you feel more easy, you're not going to be so tired as you're working on it. So that's great. Anybody else have something that they're thinking about or curious about?
I feel like my muscles get tight in the same area, and I don't know if it's related to just like lifting more, but I always get it in my shoulders and then right there. If I'm working for too long, it feels like a fist. It's like falling up in the top of my shoulders, and it's always to the left side. But I'm right-handed, so maybe that's something to do with it. But it's really weird. So just in terms of like loosening through the shoulders, is it just about like expansion and lifting? Or?
This part, keeping your neck free, watching what your head's doing is important in relationship to your neck. I mean, it always all comes back to the neck. Opening this piece up. All of these fingers are all connected. You can feel it if you put your hand on your back and you're wiggling your fingers, right? You can feel some of those muscles starting to to move. That's why a lot of, any kind of movement there, you feel there's a little muscle coordination all through there. So I'm not sure, but certainly lifting, you want to be using this energy coming up from your legs, as opposed to, it's sort of like the stopping at the shoulder piece. If I'm lifting and just thinking about my arms lifting, I want to think about my whole body lifting. And most people sort of know they should lift, lift up with the legs, but I don't know if that helps at all. There's just something to play around with, and just thinking about this through the shoulders. Anything else that somebody's thinking about?
Like, we're not directly getting this, but I always have problems with like really bad transition because I would draw for like 6-7 hours straight. But I would draw vertically, and that's how I was taught to do like on the wall or vertically. So it seemed to work better than being kind of shoulder, but I still get really tight. So one of my instructors is actually like, go do your workout right before you draw. And it's amazing because you don't realize how like loose everything gets, even if you just like go on a walk. But it's a lot easier on you. If you just, done some physical activity, it's almost like, stretch before you draw.
Yeah, classes stretch, yeah, it's a great thing. That's a great what your instructor said to you. Something else that comes to mind? Let me show you something that you can do along those lines in relationship to sometimes giving yourself a rest. We're not really meant to be, like my animation students, they said, thank God I'm in your class. I thought I was a drawing machine. Now I know how to, and maybe I am, but now I know how to take care of myself. So that idea that they just draw, and we we'll have a 3-hour class, we'll take a 15-minute break. Basically the rest of the time they're just drawing 3-minute gesture drawings, the whole 3 hours. Well, Karen, you used to teach. Did you teach the figure workshops?
I did.
Yeah.
They were great.
They were great, but they're nonstop.
They were nonstop.
Right? Yeah, and so,
but we did have to take it. You had to take a break because otherwise they'd fall down.
Yeah. So I've introduced the idea of more small breaks into the class.
Yeah.
And what we do is a position in Alexander technique we call constructive rest. We actually have a massage table. This is holding me, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. We actually have a massage table in the drawing studio now. So actually, I'm going to have that yellow page is full right now. All right, so this is something you all can do, and I would highly recommend it. Even if putting your easel vertical doesn't, you still find yourself getting a little tense. When you could go and take a little break, and instead of taking a break and doing our normal relax, which means collapse, and then going back into all this intense work, try doing this. You're going to lay on your back, and you're going to have your knees up like this, okay, with your feet, and you just get so that you have to use some energy to think about your legs coming up, and your knees are parallel to the ceiling, so you're really sort of. But I'm not using a lot of. You can come and do my leg here. I'm not really using a lot of energy to hold my legs up in this way. And I'm letting the table support my whole back and spine. Because you all know that along the spine is the spinal fluid, right? That over the course of the day, when you're walking and running around and standing at your easel and doing everything you do, that fluid moves along with gravity down. It's not really cushioning the spinal column like it's designed to after a time. So if you allow at least, I would say, at least 5 minutes, if not 10, and more is a little bit better, to let that fluid move back through the spine again, that actually gives your whole body, your whole head, neck, back, your whole torso a kind of renewed sense of energy by just letting that fluid move back between the vertebra. And then one of the things you want to think about when you're on the table is actually letting the table support you. Or if you're on the floor, really letting the floor support you. Now that seems like a funny idea, because it's like obviously the table, but you're shaking your head.
Like I remember in physics how everything, gravity works down, but floor pushes up too. So you will be supported if you think about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, our nervous systems and our sense of like responsiveness, like, oh, I might have to jump off and, you know, I don't know, defend myself against a dinosaur. I mean, I think it's some kind of really old thing in us. That our nervous systems don't let ourselves really settle down. And that idea of settling down really means letting the floor or the table come up to meet us. And really feeling like, yes, this table is supporting me. I don't have to hold my nervous system can give the signal to my brain that it can truly let this table support me. Because I can feel, even as I'm up here right now, that I can let myself be really supported a little bit more and my muscles will let go. Now, my whole back then is supported by the table. My head is supported by the book. And why, do you have any idea of why I would want to do that? Put a book under my head?
So you're